It was a typical afternoon in a quiet, small town on the outskirts of a bustling city in the Midwest. The emergency response station stood at the corner of Main Street, where the only things that usually caused a stir were the occasional fender bender or a stray dog. But that day, things were about to change. Sergeant Jake Lawson had been stationed there after a long and distinguished career in the Army. After serving multiple tours overseas, he needed some time to recalibrate, so the town's emergency response station became his new home base. A calm, orderly life for a man who had seen the worst of humanity. But Jake wasn't just any retired soldier, he was a former Special Forces operative. He knew how to deal with danger in ways that most people couldn't even fathom. A group of local bikers, led by a brash, reckless man named Travis, rolled into town that afternoon, looking for trouble. They were loud, wild, and itching for a fight. The kind of troublemakers who lived for the thrill of dominance, strutting around town like they owned the place. When they stopped by the emergency station, the sound of their roaring motorcycles rattled the windows. Travis, with his scruffy beard and leather vest, emblazoned with patches, strutted into the station like he was looking for trouble. His crew followed suit, the air thick with tension. "What's a soldier like you doing in a place like this?" Travis sneered, sizing up Jake, who was calmly sipping his coffee at the counter. "Shouldn't you be out there fighting wars or something? Or are you just a washed-up old man hanging out at a dead-end job?" The bikers laughed, but Jake didn't flinch. He placed his coffee cup down slowly, his piercing gaze never leaving Travis. "I'm here to serve the community," Jake said quietly, his voice steady but carrying an undeniable weight. "But if you're here to cause trouble, I suggest you leave. The town doesn't need your kind." Travis's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. He wasn't used to being talked down to, especially not by someone he saw as a former soldier with no power anymore. He took a few steps toward Jake, his voice rising in anger. "You don't know who you're messing with, soldier," he growled. "We don't take kindly to people like you telling us what to do." The other bikers began to shift, sensing a confrontation brewing. They circled around Jake, ready for a fight, their eyes locked on him like predators sizing up their prey. But Jake's calm demeanor never wavered. He had been in tight spots before, and he wasn't afraid of these guys. He had stared down death more times than he cared to remember, and this was just another test of character. "Let me make this clear," Jake said, his voice now cold, his tone sharpening like a blade. "You may think you're tough, but I've faced worse than you. If you're looking for a fight, you won't find it here. Leave now before things get messy." Travis let out a mocking laugh, clearly not impressed by Jake's words. "What are you gonna do, old man? Call for backup? This is our turf." In a split second, the room became eerily silent. Jake stood up, his military-trained instincts kicking in. His movements were swift, precise, and calculated. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone commanded respect. With a fluid motion, he had one of the bikers pinned to the wall in a chokehold, and the others froze in shock. "Last warning," Jake growled in the man's ear. "You've got one chance to walk out of here and never return. You don't want to test me further." Travis's cocky grin faded. He quickly assessed the situation. His crew was terrified now, realizing they had underestimated the man in front of them. They hadn't expected the calm, humble soldier to be capable of such swift, lethal action. All right," Travis said, raising his hands in surrender. "We're leaving." "You win, soldier." Jake released the biker, who stumbled back, gasping for air. Without another word, the group of bikers stormed out of the station, revving their engines as they peeled out of the parking lot. Jake remained at the counter, his hand casually returning to his coffee. The tension in the room dissolved as the door swung shut behind them. He had diffused the situation with minimal effort. proving once again that sometimes the greatest strength is in restraint. The small town would go on with its usual pace, unaware of the dangerous encounter that had just unfolded at their emergency response station. But for Jake Lawson, it was just another day in the life a soldier who had learned that true strength lies not in fighting, but in knowing when to walk away.